Let's begin our class on wish-fulfilling treasury. I will give you the oral transmission of the verses of the stanzas. Right now, I do not have time to give you the oral transmissions of the commentary, maybe another time.
Mahayana Abate Sha Shi Zhang Zir Zida Radna Gokhaya Nama Urkuta Tabachimbo Manga Tamju Yujin Jisha Jigso Njahurjun Kirala Shumsar Lo Tujim Kayan Gosser Tabalam Kimsir Kirunkur Ganvi Zishi Jan Tai Kirgin Dostir Rurva Jan Pande Goston Chola Shumsar Lo Skarzan Namdi Tunda Nirsha Tarim Chokte Denid GP Tava Gunji Nanar Zimur Kirwaji Dansang Dag Raptor Sarosha Tomi Gosser Deshik Nyambo Tunji Ganji Ramjin Dimashi Yener Namta Nyamka Tava Le Mari Kanta Lover GP Donzen Wagner Lang Zonzen Wagla Nyerlambe Yerdan Tondan Lis Wagcherde Rigby Ramjin Gosser Nyambo Jib Chirter Chenjim Karyang Nyama Jibba Vjen Yondon Mumgun Cherna de Digna Chenley Charmjong Lotong Perva Jen Marug Zonzen Simchin Ravupe Gerdig Leki Charmbe Tifkit Pum Jeva Council Corva Ramjan no Cherna Jesni the Vachak Samni Le Yerki Vachak no Jinjitenda Dela Tember Zixu Yeringago Tonji Vachak Namshi Sogetan Dela Tember Gerdig Lernam so Liki Vachak Joju Sosu Dela Tembe Yang Go Terter Ganji Standa Vakshaksam, Togmet Dine, Jabba Tekum, Tekumbe, Tseripkanda, Terter Nawayan, Meshi Bada, Tamchid Sem Yin Lo, Nangwar Nansam, Tonla Shender Mong, Stun Mang, Pansan, Chorjan, Hajan Tar, Stieshit Tak, Stungshit Tak, Lignan Terpon Shik. 今天讲这么多。 这个还是比较多，我想我们前面可能稍微少讲一点，后面到人生难得，就这些比较简单，就简单的地方多讲一点，对吧？用这全部做的挺迷上，都能我们全部人家当，包括当工厂都什么都，东北当对这将来给乡村人，你像如果这个乡公司，家伙推荐乡的为了，就没帮助着了，所以。
To liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the supreme bodhicitta. Now let us begin our class on the wish-fulfilling treasury. The wish-fulfilling treasury has 22 chapters, which can be summarized into 3 words, that is, study, contemplation, and practice. First of all, we're going to cover the aspects that's covered in the wish-fulfilling treasury on samsara and then later nirvana. Because in the wish-fulfilling treasury, there are the 2 aspects. The first one is nirvana, samsara, and then nirvana, and how to attain liberation from samsara. The teachings are very clear in this text. Yesterday, we already covered the verses on praise or on homage. The second one, the verse on making promise to compose the text. Today we'll get into the actual content according to the textual outline composed by Mipa Rinpoche, which then in the main content, there are 2 aspects taught as well. The first one talks about the nature of samsara, which should be refuted, and the second one is the nature of nirvana should be accepted. The nirvana that's stated over here means the fruition of Buddhahood, the accomplishment. It doesn't mean passing into parinirvana. It doesn't mean the Buddha passed into nirvana. It doesn't mean that. In terms of the nature of samsara that should be refuted, it has two aspects as well. The first one is that everything that appears are the adornments of the world. And then the second aspect talks about the world has the manifestations of suffering and happiness. In terms of all that manifests are the adornment, talks about the ground that manifests and the world that's manifested. The ground over here, we have studied it in many Vajrayana teachings, especially luminous essence, in the context of ground, path, and fruition. And then the ground also has two aspects. The first one is to see the nature of ground, and then the second one talks about how it manifests. How do we recognize the nature of ground? We need to address the question of how samsara and nirvana manifests. Where does it manifest from? Many people would ask, well, where does samsara come from? Where do people come from? Where does ignorance come from? Many people have shared that same question. In fact, this is a question about the beginning. This is a question about the source, which is a very important topic to discuss in Buddhism. And over here, this particular explanation is shared in both Sutrayana and Vajrayana teachings. To recognize or to see through the nature of ground, to see clearly the nature of ground is stated in the first verse, where it says, the primordial luminosity, the Buddha nature, uncompounded, the pivotal alaya, similar to the sun in the sky, pure from the beginning. The primordial, which is the beginning, primordial, the very beginning refers to it's empty. It is emptiness. In the commentary, it says that emptiness and luminosity, it has never parted. It is self-manifested luminosity. So the manifestation, you can say that it is the union of manifestation and emptiness. It is non-dual. It is in the sphere of non-dual, which is the Dharmadhatu. From the transmundane point of view, we can say that that is the source of three kayas and five wisdom. In another word, it means that everything that is pure, that belongs to the aspect of nirvana, their source is Buddha nature. All the impure manifestation, their base is the alaya. And then the uncompounded. What is uncompounded? It means that it is not a product of cause and condition. So this is equivalent to the aspect of luminosity, just like the sun. In the pure space, it appears the sun. So in the primordial purity, there is non-dependent arising. This is our ground. So let us be the sentient beings or Buddha. That is the ground where everything begins. So this is called Dharmadhatu. This is the first way of explaining what Dharmadhatu is, and there's another way to explain it. All that manifests from the point of view of the noble one, from a sage, the base for that kind of pure manifestation is Buddha nature. However, for all the samsaric beings, their base of manifestation is alaya. Therefore, the alaya or Buddha nature, uncompounded, all these simply points to the non-duality between manifestation and emptiness. Of course, the sun doesn't point to that substantial sun we see, or there's the sky. It doesn't mean that. It means that the emptiness is not void. Rather, it means that it is a primordial purity sphere, that is the space, which is not separated from the luminosity. And over here, using the example of the sun to point to that luminosity. They're not separate. Therefore, if you were to ask what's the beginning of samsara and what's the beginning of the sentient beings, it is in fact of uncompounded. Or you can say that there's the Buddha nature alaya, the alaya consciousness with this kind of dependent arising. That is our base, that is our ground. So for people who never really studied Vajrayana, you probably will get confused. But if you have already studied the Treasury of Supreme Vehicle or the Treasury of word and meaning, then you would definitely be able to understand it. Since our ground is not produced by cause and condition, let it be Buddha nature, alaya consciousness, and they are all uncompounded. Then if you were to ask, well, if it's uncompounded, then how can we rely on it? In the commentary, Longchenpa quoted from Uttara Tantra Shastra to explain. It says that the ground has the support of water. Water has the support of wind. Wind has the support of space. Space does not have any support. For the same reason, the afflictions and samsara that manifested is based on karma and affliction. And this karmic habitual tendencies and afflictions rely on mind, and mind is of emptiness. So the sentient beings rely on the sentient beings manifest because of karmic tendencies and afflictions. But what does the karmic tendencies and afflictions based on? It is based on mind. And mind based on what? Mind is based on the uncompounded Dharmadhatu. What's the connection between the two then? They are of the inconceivable dependent arising. When we look at our inanimate world, how the earth is floating in mid of space, or how the four elements has a base of the element of space. In fact, it works both ways. The ground we're discussing over here, there are lots of teachings on it from the wish-fulfilling treasury, which the other Buddhist texts don't talk a lot. Therefore, for such profound teaching, it would be the best for you to really understand it, so that we understand what's the base of samsara, or we understand what's the primordial ground. We have to understand it from the different aspects. And I really wish that you have time to look into and study further with the commentary composed by Longchenpa. I don't think there are lots of commentary available in different languages, but I believe there's another one in Tibetan language, which is composed by Shiching Gyaltsal. Another commentary was composed by Khenpo Deba that was supplicated by myself and Khenpo Guru. Back in 2005, Khenpo Deba finished composing his text, and he gave teachings on it too. Khenpo Deba received pith instruction from Poyo Khenpo, and Poyo Khenpo received from Khenpo Genhor, and Khenpo Genhor received pith instruction from Mipa Rinpoche. Therefore, I thought it would be really wonderful if Khenpo Deba would compose a commentary on it. Though that I supplicated to him to compose this text, I haven't had time to read it yet. It's been 17 years till now. So this time, while I'm giving teaching on it, I also cross-reference with the commentary composed by Khenpo Deba. But for those of you probably don't have that many commentaries to cross-reference to, but since now I've translated the commentary composed by Longchenpa, I really hope that you should finish reading the commentary composed by him at least. It's not that easy to understand. You have to read it for many times, because they're not like novels or stories. There are lots of profound wisdom that's within, so you have to try your best to delve into it. Many of you are very smart and young. So when you're here, even if just for a year or two, it would be the best for you to seek for the Dharma, to put your mind to the Dharma. Do not think too much about entertainment over here or the meals and enjoyments. Otherwise, by the time that you have to return to wherever you came from, if you have not received the genuine Dharma, if you have not received the thing that you sought for when you just came here, then it would be such a shame. Especially when you look at all the other fellow Sangha members who came to Larangar around the similar time, they returned to their hometown or to different places after receiving abundant Dharma, but you received nothing, then it is just like going to an island full of treasure but return empty-handed. So while we're here, we should try to do things that's really meaningful for the Sangha and put our mind onto the studying, contemplation, and practice of the Dharma and not anything that's afflictive. Now, previously, we've already talked about the manifestation from ground, especially quoting from how the earth is supported by water and water by wind and wind by space and space is not by anything. This is taught in other sutras as well. So this is the dependent arising aspect, which is really important. Now let's look at the second aspect, talking about how it manifested. It also has two aspects. The first one is the actual explanation of the nature of three manifestations, and then the second one is observe the nature through teaching. And then the first one, the actual explanation has two aspects, which is the brief explanation and then extensive. So let's look at the brief explanation. It says, there are the three manifestations. There are the nature of the three manifestations. This is the keyword for today. If you can remember one keyword a day, then this would become really meaningful throughout your whole life. The verse goes, the clouds of conceptual ignorance, the adventitious stains, subject and object duality arise from dormant tendencies. Over here, the conceptual ignorance, as you probably are aware of, they occurred incidentally, and they're not solidly existent. So from the adventitious stain of conceptual ignorance, they're just like the clouds. The clouds are not the nature of the space, however it appears incidentally. Because of adventitious stain, because of this conceptual ignorance, then subject and object duality will arise. Originally, on our alaya, or the base of all the sentient beings, there is the habitual tendency as dormant seeds lying in our alaya, but there are dormant tendencies. There are the dormant obscuration. However, conceptual ignorance is the condition that contribute for the arising of subject and object duality, which then further forms the habitual tendency of the three aspects, which is object, consciousness, and body. Later, we'll further explain the three. After these three habitual patterns of object, consciousness, and body is formed, the nature of awareness, the luminous essence, the Buddha nature will be obscured. The pure nature will be obscured. In the Sutrayana, as well as in the Pramana Vatika, it constantly quotes that the nature is luminous. However, there are all kinds of adventitious stains. So the nature of mind is luminous, but because of the incidental adventitious stain, obscures the mind. Great Master Han Shan, he's realized the Zen master. Sometimes whenever we read into those great masters of the past and their teachings, we will be able to see that how much depth their teachings are. he once said that each of the movement of the thoughts, in fact, they're simply the manifestations out of great purity. So let it be the mountains and water or river or body or any phenomena. In fact, all of those kinds of manifestations are no other than the clouds, that which obscures. The clouds could gather to form rain, and rain could down from the clouds to mature the dormant seeds that's been hidden in the ground. So this is very similar to what's been explained over here. And there are, of course, many different kinds of examples or metaphors. When it comes to the question, how did we get confused? How did I get obscured? If I have Buddha nature, how did I start to get confused? So that question is similar to the question, how did the space generate cloud and how did cloud generate rain? There are lots of similar examples and metaphors that points to that question. Now this part talks about the obscuration of Buddha nature. Next part goes, just as clouds obscures the sun in the sky, spiritual richness conceals, confused happiness and suffering occur. The adventitious things, which is just like cloud, obscures the nature of our mind, which is like the space. Also, the luminosity, that is like the radiance from the sun and moon, will also be obscured. Whenever you look at the clouds that appears in the sky, then it could cover up the space, the sky. Originally, the sky is blue, but when the clouds covers it, we won't be able to see it. Same applies to the moonlight and to the sunlight. Also, whenever we have clouds over here, right away we feel it's winter again. It's really cold. I see that many of you dug out your winter jackets again. Is that right? The clouds that obscures the space points to that the obscuration of confusion, which is incidental, just like the clouds. And this kind of incidental confusion obscures our Buddha nature, obscures the luminosity. And then from this kinds of confusion manifests happiness and suffering. In samsara, sometimes we're suffering, sometimes we have all kinds of happiness, but we don't see the nature. Even having a glimpse of the nature, and right away we'll get covered up. For that reason, we do not see our spiritual richness or our merit. All kinds of qualities of the form kaya and the dharma kaya. The 64 qualities of the kayas would not manifest. In fact, we already have those merits and qualities. Especially for those of you who study Uttara Tantra Shastra, we already have them. Otherwise, how can we develop those wisdom if we don't have them? How can we discover those wisdom if we don't have them? Now we don't have those wisdom or those qualities. It's because those confusion is obscuring the innate wisdom. Just as we're really cold this afternoon just because the clouds covered up the sunlight. So all kinds of wind and coldness and the clouds and so on, in fact, they simply obscures the innate luminosity and light. Now the next one says, rain downs from clouds makes the crops grow. Ignorant dualistic mind gathers like clouds. Just like how clouds would down from the rain would down from clouds, And after it rains from clouds, the crops will continuously grow in the spring. So very soon they will become ripened. For the same reason, the clouds of ignorance or the clouds of the dualistic apprehender and apprehended mind will continuously to manifest. After having that, then the virtuous karma and sometimes vice karma would manifest as well, based on our tendencies. Sometimes with our tendencies of virtue, we will practice virtuous deeds, and sometimes with the vice tendencies, we will practice vice karma or the bad karma. Therefore, the fruition will definitely manifest in the samsara of the three realms, because that's just the nature of samsara. According to the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment, it says something that's very similar, where it says that if we were to be trapped in the mind of samsara, if our conception keep on going in such a way, then till the end of samsara, there's no way for us to enter into the ocean of the Buddhas. There's probably some other verses in between, but I can't quite remember. However, the teaching is very similar, where it says that if our Buddha nature is being obscured by the adventitious things, then we could create all kinds of karma. And after creating karma, we will be continuously trapped in samsara, to wander in samsara. So the reason for trapping in samsara has been expounded briefly in these verses, and very clearly too. Our Buddha nature, all the sentient beings of Buddha nature, is primordially pure and of the nature of luminosity. It is uncompounded. It is Buddha nature. However, we're here because of the incidental obscuration. This is not only taught in Vajrayana teachings, but Sutrayana teachings as well. It is taught throughout all schools and sects. Now the next part. Start to talk about the actual explanation of the nature of the three manifestations, where it has the brief and the extensive explanation according to the textual outline. The brief explanation, the verse is, all the confused appearances manifest out of three karmic tendencies. The three karmic tendencies being the tendency of object of phenomena and of the consciousness and the body. So karmic tendency of object phenomena manifests the inanimate world, based on which the five external objects, form, etc. would occur. Karmic tendencies of the meaning of knowing, which is consciousness, appears 8 collections of consciousness, based on which the virtuous and vice karma occurs. Karmic tendency of body appears in various forms in 6 realms, based on which parts and limbs occurs. We are still wandering in samsara because of the 3 karmic tendencies. They act as the causes. The first out of the 3 is called the karmic tendency of object phenomena, which include the earth and the ocean, the mountains, the river. So in general, the inanimate world, the container. On top of that, there is the animate world that relies on the inanimate world, the sentient beings, the animate world, the sentient beings of the 6 realms. Also, the form, sound, smell, touch, the 5 objects, the 5 sensory objects, all of those are considered as the external phenomena. These are all based on our karmic tendency of the object phenomena. The second one is the karmic tendency of consciousness. In fact, consciousness is not an accurate translation, though it means consciousness, but the Tibetan term is dun. Dun means meaning, or it has the connotation of knowing, so the apprehender. This object of knowing refers to, first of all, there is the alaya. From alaya, there arises the 5 root consciousness. That's 6 already. And then on top of that, there's mind consciousness and namas consciousness, the defiled consciousness. So together, there are the 8 compounded consciousness. By the 8 compounded consciousness, what do you get then? There is the virtuous and vice karma that would be produced based on this, because it is the apprehender, the dualistic thoughts. How does it manifest and how does it work? It is that on the alaya consciousness, it could store all kinds of seeds as well as karmic tendencies. Some of them that can lead to the manifestation of formless realm or the form realm or the desire realm. The 5 root consciousness could lead to form realm, and then the mind consciousness and the manas consciousness could lead to the rebirth to the desire realm. Therefore, we can see the 8 consciousness are really the root of samsara. So this karmic tendency of meaning, the reason it's called the meaning or the truth, because based on this meaning or this truth, it could give rise to the apprehending conception. And from the apprehending conception, we can make all kinds of karma, where the virtuous karma could lead us to be reborn in the higher realms, and then the vice karma could lead to the lower realms. If we were to eradicate these kinds of habitual tendencies, then we need prajna paramita. We need the emptiness teachings, so that all the alaya and the karmic tendencies of alaya that's brought forth by the karmic tendencies of the 8 compounded consciousness can be eradicated, so that all the 3 realms and the manifestations can be eradicated. Now, the 3rd karmic tendency, which is the karmic tendency of body, it could appear in various forms in the 6 realms. Let it be hell realm or hungry ghost realm or celestial beings realm. You will carry that body in those realms accordingly. However, this kind of body with a form doesn't have a true solid existence by itself. It is made of different fragments. The hands, the limbs, the head, and the feet. It is simply a shell. But upon this shell and all the different parts, then we give it a name called the body. Even in our dreams, we would grasp onto this body. But in the dreams, the body is still very different than the so-called body that we have right now. So we can say it in that way. The object phenomenon, or the phenomenon, or the object world is the phenomenon on the outside. The meaning or the consciousness is the consciousness, and then the body is the body that we would take in different realms. So those are the 3 explanations on the 3 words. The particular explanation is different than the Chittamatra school, but we need to understand it according to its context. Now, previously is the brief explanation. Now it's a summary. Over here in the summary, it says that in such a way, the 3 habitual tendencies embedded on alaya, habituating it from beginningless time, they manifest throughout lifetimes. Alaya is like such. There are the habitual tendency of the external world, and then of the 8 compounded consciousness, and then of the body. Our habitual tendencies in different aspects are very different. Of this body, for example, people don't look the same, and then there are people who have healthy body, and there are some others that probably don't have a very good quality body. Some probably probably would get sick every day. Some probably look beautiful, some probably not. And some have good character, good personality, some not. So that is all because of all sentient beings have different alaya. Based on different kinds of causes and conditions, there are the very subtle karmic habitual patterns on it, just like a little chip that we have nowadays in our cell phones. We can't see them, and though they appear to be very minor, very subtle, the causes and conditions, but on our alaya, it will slowly to manifest as external phenomena or as a body or as all kinds of personality and mindset and so on. These three karmic tendencies are like the three different types of seeds, and the three different types of seeds can blossom and fruit with the appropriate conditions. Some people would say that, oh, why am I so poor? Why am I so ugly? Why am I suffering so much? Why am I so anxious? Why do I have so many negative things? Why do I have so many positive aspects? Why am I so wise? Why do I have so much compassion? In fact, all of those different types of manifestations are because of your different types of habitual patterns, including even body. Even if, for example, twins, they look very similar. They look probably exactly the same even at the very beginning of birth. But once they grew up, maybe the twins don't even look very similar anymore. I once saw these twins, and they were dressed in the same clothing, the same type of clothing, but because of their karmic tendency and their causes conditions are different, therefore they don't even look too similar anymore. So from different aspects, if we were to plant all kinds of habitual tendencies on our alaya, it will manifest throughout lifetimes. In this samsara, if we were to continuously create virtuous karma or vicious karma, then it will keep us trapped in samsara. In our lifetime, to encounter such a profound teaching, we're really fortunate. So on one hand, I really encourage all of you to study extensively. This is really important. Let it be the 5 treatises or the Tantrayana teachings. You have to continuously to invest your time and effort into study. This is really important. And then in terms of studying, there are 2 things I really want you to remember. One is that only studying in theory is going to be very difficult to use it in the real world. So we have to learn how to help sentient beings. We have to train ourselves in such a way. Now we could be studying Avatar, Bodhisattva, Charivatara, or Beacon of Certainty, and so on. Then you have to think about how to carry it out and benefit beings in this world. Not everyone has that credential to give teachings to people right now, but if you have this kinds of aspiration, then you should give simple teachings even, or some short teachings, or share some of the things that you've learned to the others. This is really important. That being said, I know a Khenpo who is very wise. He has lots of wisdom in him, and he should have been a very good Khenpo in terms of propagating the Dharma. Dharma. However, he manifests in such a way of having this ability to communicate well to the others. So this interrelationship aspect of him is not that great. Therefore, his propagation of Dharma has some obscurations. Therefore, it's not as extensive as it could have been. So I think it's quite important for you to learn how to communicate with others and how to maintain good interpersonal relationships. After studying so much, if you can't use it to benefit beings because of interpersonal relationship problems, then it would be such a pity. I think it's easy to memorize the 5 treatises. If you're a little bit smarter, you can do it. If you can memorize Madhyamika, memorize Abhidharma, and study this year by year, I think it would be not that difficult. But in terms of interpersonal relationship, everyone has very different habitual tendencies. So you shouldn't really treat everyone as how you think about yourself. You have to see their habitual tendency and then use the appropriate ways to work with them. This is skillful means. It's not that easy, really. I see lots of young Khenpos and Khenmos, young teachers over here. Maybe because of that, I'm sure you will definitely have the opportunity to give teachings in the future. But I really hope that you can work on the interpersonal relationship and make aspiration, because if you don't have the aspiration and a strong determination, I think it would be difficult to give teachings to the others for years with great persistence. At the beginning, of course, it's easy because anything at the beginning is could be quite new and exciting, and people can get very passionate. But to persist all the way through after years and years is difficult. So you can work on your interpersonal relationship and work on different aspects. In this way, you will be able to create the appropriate conditions, causes and conditions for your future propagation of Dharma. I'm sure we have lots of the monastic sangha over here. I'm sure you will have the opportunity, because things will change. There will be many opportunities, but of course, these opportunities from certain aspects, there could be some obscurations happening. Let it be from external or any other aspects. So it's quite important to remind you to learn how to be communicative and how to work with others skillfully and how to build interpersonal relationship if you were to propagate the Dharma to the others. That was the first aspect, which is interpersonal relationship. And the second aspect is we have to start from now, engage in actual practice. We have to have the meditation practice. Previously, I told Khenpos and Khenmos that it is indeed important for us to engage in the study and contemplation of the 5 treatises, though that I know the time is very limited, but we do need to take some time to engage in the actual practice of meditation. At the beginning, meditation could be a little bit difficult. Not everyone could start off to sit for an hour or two, but if you can sit for half an hour without dozing off, I think it's something that we can aim for. So we can start off from meditate on the words of my perfect teacher or whatever teachings that you would receive every day. In the Han tradition, I see that people would sit around a Buddha statue. I went to Shenzhen and also Jiangxi. Many of those temples, they would put a Buddha in the center, and then people would sit around it and then start their 7-day retreat. There are the group retreats, which is quite common in Tibetan Buddhism as well. So from this year onward, I encourage everyone should start meditating. At the beginning, I understand it will create some discomfort, or people would doze off, or all kinds of thoughts would come and go. But at that time, you have to remember, at the beginning, it's a bit difficult and tiring, but eventually and naturally, it will get much better. In my little monastery, there is a practice class or practice course. There are about 20 people enrolled in it. And those people in that practice class, they're very different than the others because they're very focused. They don't look around, and they always, or at least they can, for a long period of time, to abide in the nature of their mind. So whatever you practice, compassion, renunciation, do it, practice it. We have to eradicate samsara. Then if you want to do that, you have to put some effort into it, some time and some effort. Do not focus on entertainment. If you do that and stay here in Laronggar, I think you're not worthy to stay here, to be honest, if I were to be blunt. Because Laronggar is a place where many people attained the rainbow body. This is the place where people practice Mahayana teaching, where people generated genuine bodhicitta, where people generated the genuine realization of Mahaati. This is a supreme pure land. It is not a place for people to engage in entertainment all day. Of course, it's only a very small amount of people over here that does it. So I'm simply reminding you that if you don't want to spend your effort and energy and your resources in practice, then there's no need to waste our resources over here. We only have very limited space and limited resources, limited infrastructure. Therefore, we want to use this environment and this container to cultivate, to help the genuine practitioners to cultivate their practice. Whatever practice you want to practice, you want to engage in, do it, because that's the only thing that would change your mind. Maybe at the beginning, when you first came here, when you were still living in the cities, you were a terrible person. But maybe after engaging in practice and study, you are transformed. But without practice, without the change in the mind, even if you're wearing a robe, a monastic robe, with the grave afflictions and all kinds of bad habits, then you just simply look different. The other day, I also said that all the resources that we have, including the water, the road, and the residence, they are the resources to provide to the pure Sangha. For a person who don't want to engage in study and contemplation, but enjoy all the resources that's provided here, I think maybe staying here is not very virtuous for you. Now let's look at the next verse. Now the next verse talks about refuting the wrong view. The ignorant claims that everything is mind, so foolish they are about the three appearances. Many faults and contradictions, just absurd. Please protect oneself and abandon the inferior view. Longchenpa apparently got upset with the foolish ones because the foolish ones now started to state that, oh, everything is their mind. The mountains and rivers and the ground, they're all their mind. Sometimes we also would say that everything is mind. We just learned about the three manifestations. The first one is the karmic tendency of object phenomena, and second one, the karmic tendency of the meaning, which is the 8 collective or 8 compounded consciousness, and then the karmic tendency of body. But the foolish ones don't know that. They have no idea of that. They would think that all the 3 manifestations are all mind. The 8 collective consciousness, yes, that's mind. But the body and external phenomena, the container world, is not mind, because in the conventional world they're still separated. The external phenomena is the external phenomena, and then the mind is the mind. You can't say that the external phenomena is your mind, or his body is your body, or the external pillar is your mind. You can't really say that. You can't say that at all. That would be a great mistake. Therefore, Longchenpa over here says that for someone who has no idea about the three tendencies and the meanings of it, they make way too many mistakes. They create grave faults and contradictions, and it is just absurd. Longchenpa over here specifically said that they're just like the herders. I'm not sure what kind of family he's from. Garab Dorje, for example, he stayed at a place where they had the cultural understanding that if someone's a herder, then they don't have much wisdom. But over here we can see that Longchenpa's view is that whatever manifests as the object phenomena is not mind. If object phenomena is mind, then whatever we see in the outside of the mountains, rivers, and ground, we can see it, we can hear it. If they are mind, then we should be able to touch our mind as well. We can feel it as well. Then there's the fault like that. If mind, since mind cannot be touched, cannot be captured, cannot be touched, then the external phenomena shouldn't be able to be seen, to be touched, because the external phenomena is the mind. From that aspect, that's the other aspect. There's another fault that's associated with it, which is if it's mind, then if one sentient being attains Buddhahood, then every sentient being would attain Buddhahood, because mind should be of one, it is not of many. Secondly, there's a fault of getting contradicting, because the external world is inanimate. Then in that way, then our mind should be inanimate either. Also, the external world is on the outside, therefore our mind should be on the outside as well. Or our mind should be in the also within the other sentient beings. Because our mind is within the sentient beings, therefore all the mountains and rivers should also be inside the sentient beings. There is such fault as well. There is such contradiction. The third downfall of this argument is that it's absurd, because if one person were to be born at a place before he takes rebirth, for example, over here, then this place should be here. But this kind of absurdity from the wrong view is that before you take rebirth at a certain place, then that place shouldn't be there, because you haven't taken rebirth there yet. Another example is that if there's a wildfire on the mountains, then your mind should be on fire as well. Or if there's an earthquake on the outside, then your mind should be having an earthquake as well. So there are all kinds of faults that's associated with it. With this idea. But then there could be people asking, well, the sutra already taught that everything is just mind. Everything's mind has been taught in Mahayana teachings. Isn't that recognized by, agreed upon by all different schools? But then Longchenpa over here want to specifically analyze that, yes, everything is mind. That's been stated in the sutra, but over here this mind specifically refers to all the manifestations are mind, but doesn't mean that the object that's manifested is mind. So he give further teachings in the Treasury of Dharmadhatu as well as resting the mind. He explained it very explicitly. He said that the manifestation is the object of phenomena. That's being referred over here. There is a specific type of plant that could be intoxicating. After taking it, and then you'll be able to see all kinds of illusion. But these kinds of illusion that's appearing on the outside, they're not the external phenomena. They're neither your mind either. They're just the kind of illusion that's appearing outside without any true existence. They're simply a manifestation of your mind. So you can say in that way the manifestation is mind. And that's what's been stated in the sutra. However, what we don't recognize over here, what we don't agree on over here is the kind of everything is mind while holding on to mind being solidly existent, because that idea has been agreed upon by the Chittamatra school, because they think there is one truly existent thing that is called the mind. According to the Chittamatra school, they would think that all the form, sound, smell, touch, and all of those, all the way from there to the full attainment of the fruition of Buddhahood, everything is truly existent. In Madhyamika Avatara, when it talks about the emptiness of the characteristics, it says that everything is empty of its characteristics. So how could it be empty? Because let's look at what's the characteristic of the solidly existing characteristic of form or of the sound. They are existent in the conventional world. However, in fact, the characteristic of themselves are also empty. That's been acknowledged in the Madhyamika Avatara. So everything manifested is mind. That is correct. However, if you were to say that all the objects that's manifested are mind, then that is making you as a foolish one, that is as foolish as a herder. So for this kinds of wrong view, you should definitely reject it. You should refute it and not to be foolish. This is a really important view from Longchenpa. You have to spend time to contemplate out on it. The manifestation is mind, yes. However, the object of manifestation is not mind. If you were to study Chittamatra school or the Madhyamika Avatara, at the beginning of it, it usually also talk about how everything manifests as mind, including the 10 Chakra Sutra as well as the including the Shrankama Sutra. They all explains that. However, it's quite important to make sure you understand in the conventional world, yes, the characteristic and the object, they do exist, but in the ultimate view, they do not have any intrinsic existence. So you should make clear of that. No, we should stop here today.